Springtime is upon us, which means that the outdoor markets are going to start up again soon. At least they are here in Northern Virginia. I wanted to make a project that was rather quick to make and reminiscent of the spring and Easter, stuff that could be used as decorations. So I came up with these little flower bowls. These are 2 different sizes. You can nest them. You could put various little like Easter eggs in them or chocolates or whatnot. So these are fun little knick-knack bowls. They don't take long to make. It's just 2 firings, 1 tack fuse, and 1 draping. So let's start our project. For this project, we're going to be using these mixing bowls as draping molds. And I'm going to show you what I do to prepare them, to use them for draping. So these are great when you buy them as a set. Either, the best place would be to find them in a thrift store or secondhand shop, a garage sale, a yard sale, whatever. But they're fairly inexpensive, even on Amazon. And what's great about them is that you get them in such a variety of sizes. So for the project today, I'm going to be using the 2nd largest size on this, and I'm going to show you how I measure the bowl so that my project matches it, and then how I prepare the bowls before I drape on them for the first time. So to do my measuring, I'm going to be using a tape measure instead of a ruler because of the curved sides on this bowl. So as with this example bowl that I made earlier, I'm going to need the size of the base of the bowl for the inside of the flower, and then the maximum length here will tell me how long these petals have to be. And then I could figure out how long the petal needs to be in total length by adding half of this circle radius, or rather the circle radius, half the diameter, plus the maximum size here. So you'll see on this one fits perfectly over the smaller bowl, which I had used to do the first bowl that I made. So what I like about these bowls is that they have that flat bottom so that your creation stands, very solidly on a table or whatnot. It's very flat. So for this, the diameter is 3.5, and then the maximum petal length will be from the end of the circle, and then so it's about, I would say, 2 3/4 inches. So 3 1/4, and then 2 3/4 inches. So now that I have my measurements and I could create my stencils with that, what I will go do to prepare this mold for draping, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-fire this stainless steel bowl to remove a bit of the shininess and to allow either the zip or kiln wash to adhere better to the surface. Because when it's too shiny, too new, those 2 products don't adhere well to the sides. And we have to cover it, of course, in something so that our glass doesn't stick to it when we drape. And why am I choosing to drape rather than slump? Because when you slump into the shape, and because of these pointy little edges, I'm afraid that it won't sit quite centered on the bowl, and then my bottom will not reach the bottom here properly. And so if I turn it over and I center my circle to the circle this way, well, with the smaller bowl of course, I'm guaranteed that this is going to be my bottom and it's going to lay flat. So I'm going to pre-fire this while I work on cutting my glass, and I'm just throwing it into the kiln. I have some pieces that are in the kiln that I'm just enameling, and so I'm taking it up to 1200 degrees, and that's it. So I created my template. I like to create my templates, my stencils out of transparencies because they're plastic and they're easily reusable. The only problem is that they're transparent and I tend to lose them on my workspace. But after I use them and I trace around them a couple of times, you know, the edges become black, so it's a little easier to see. So I made a circle stencil with little holes in it because I want to have this little effect here. And then so I'm going to use it as a stencil to cut my glass and then to put frit powder onto the glass. So you'll see this measures the same as the bottom of the bowl. And then I made 2 more stencils, these long petal shapes, and these ones will go from the center here and will drape down here. And then I have these ones that are cut off, and they're going to go from here and they're going to drape down. And so I made sure when I made these that they don't drape all the way down the edge, because I want to make sure that it won't touch the bottom of the bowl and then, you know, curve back up like this. So you want to make sure that your petals, your outer petals, are shorter than the edge of your bowl. So I'll be using sunflower yellow for the center, and then the big petals, the long petals are going to be petal pink. I mean, could I have chosen a better color? And then the short petals, because those ones are a little more visible, you'll see because they're on the front, the inside, I'm going to be using this white cranberry pink streaky. So I'm going to use my little stencils to trace and then cut. I've traced 8 of these double pointed petals, and I'm going to give you a little trick or something that I find really helpful when I'm cutting things that have pointy ends. So I find that if I score one side and break and then score the other side, my ends remain pointy. But if I score both sides and then break them, the ends tend to, well, the score line tends to not follow properly, and then my ends get broken off. So I will score in one on one side, and then break them, and then go back and score the other side. So normally I would score them all and then break them, but just for this example, I'm going to do just one right now. And then gently break. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and score the other side and then break. And you see, both my points are still intact. So I'm going to go cut all of my petals and the half petals. And then I'm going to grind them because right now the edges are kind of grubby. And then we'll assemble them on the kiln shelf. So here's the initial cut of all of the pieces. I'm going to take them to the grinder, and then we're going to add the detail to the middle of the flower. Now we're going to decorate this little piece. So I'm going to use a piece of paper and a little plastic cup, and I'm going to put this piece on top. So I have my little stencil and it's got holes on it. If you look at the original one I made, the holes are just to make to give it a little interest. I'm going to do it a little differently this time. So I'm going to grab my trusty Bullseye blue gel, and I'm going to use it on this piece here. And I always put it in a container next to me because I'm going to use a brush to brush it on. Now when I did this piece here, after I was done, I was like, it's a little plain. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to cover the whole piece with gel. I'm going to come in and add the dots in a darker color, and then in a shade that's between the base color and the darker color, I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to powder this whole thing. So that's why I needed to all be covered in gel to begin with. So I'm just gonna brush it with some gel, not too much. And I'm going to put my little holy stencil on top. And usually I wouldn't put gel on the bottom, and I just come in and I put gel on top, and even on top of the stencil, so that when I do remove the stencil, all the powder, the excess powder, will stay on the stencil and will not fall back onto the piece. But I'm not sure how this is going to work because I put the gel underneath too. So the colors I'm going to use are tangerine orange powder, and then I have this and then I have this glass that's marigold opal. It's COE 90, and I've used it before with Bullseye glass, so it works pretty well. And this one is not a powder, this is fine. So we're gonna do the dots with the orange and then cover the whole thing after with just a really thin layer of this fine frit, because we still want to see the bottom, but I want to give the whole piece some texture, because you see here there's only the dots that have this texture, and then there's a lot of space, so I want to make it a little different. So as always, I'm putting my mask on to work with powder. So I'm going to use this little sieve to start off with. Okay. That worked rather well. Tap off the excess here. I'll wash this later. I can move this piece, recuperate my powder. And then I'm going to use this tea strainer because it has bigger holes for this guy. And this part is done. So now that this stainless steel mold is out of the kiln after an initial firing, I'm actually going to paint it with zip. My zip comes, so this is the zip, the boron nitride. It comes with a spray nozzle, but I've taken it off, and I'm actually going to paint it stainless steel. I feel like when I paint it, the zip adheres better than when I spray it. So I'm just going to go over the whole mold and paint it with zip with a couple of coats. And again, this is, for those who don't know, the boron nitride prevents the glass from sticking to the stainless steel mold. So whatever mold you use to either slump or drape, you always have to cover it with something to prevent the glass from sticking. So you can either use boron nitride like I'm using, or you can use kiln wash. And if you decide to use kiln wash, I suggest using a 1-to-1 ratio on the kiln wash. So 1 measure of kiln wash to 1 measure of water. Usually kiln wash, I think, is 1-to-4. So 1 measure of kiln wash to 4 measures of water. But if you're using it for a stainless steel mold, it has trouble adhering to it, and so I would make the kiln wash thicker. So I'm just going to apply a couple of layers and let it dry. So here I have my kiln shelf with a piece of papyrus on top. I traced on the papyrus some lines, and the circle fits my stencil perfectly. It's just so I could align everything on the kiln shelf to make sure everything fits. So I'm going to take my large petals and place them on the lines. Okay, and then I'm going to take, before I do that, some trusty gel to make sure that stuff doesn't move around. And these petals go in between. Okay, this is going to go into the kiln for a tack fuse, and you'll notice on the fusing schedule, the firing schedule, the anneal time is long, and that's because we have varying thicknesses. So we have here that's 3 millimeters, and here we have 6 millimeters. So because things won't cool down at the same time, at the same rate, because of the varying thicknesses, we anneal the piece for a longer period of time. So here's our piece out of the kiln. Nice little piece. I do like how this centerpiece ended up being more than this one. So now the next step is we're going to put it on our stainless steel mold to drape. So here's the mold covered in zip, boron nitride. And we'll just place this. Make sure it's centered. And if I calculated this correctly, the petals should just drape down without touching the edges. Now it's going to go back in the kiln. So here's our bowl out of the kiln, all done. I love how it draped. It gives it a great shape, and I could nest my other smaller bowl in it if I wanted to put them away or store them. I would not recommend drinking soup in these bowls because they're not watertight. There's some gaps that can be seen here and there, but they're fun to put some Easter decorations in them or chocolates. put decorations in them, or just knickknacks. Just put them around the house. A fun little, a little pop of color for the spring. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you did, please give this video a like and let me know if you have any questions. I try to answer I read all your comments and try to answer everything that you post. Always try to help people out. I would love to see your work. If you do, you could always follow me on Instagram. I'll link my Instagram account in the description box, and I'll leave you with some pictures. See you on the next project.